The gasoline shortages are getting worse by the minute. Welcome, my friends, to Joe Biden's America. It's only been about 3.5 months, but we've got escalating crisis in the Middle East. We've got skyrocketing consumer prices. We've got a mass exodus from the workforce, 8 million job openings. Nobody wants to take the jobs. And now we got a cyber attack on a pipeline and gasoline shortages. Woo! Biden, you're getting a lot done in the first 4 months, and it doesn't end there. I got the story from WXII 12, North Carolina. About 25% of gas stations are without fuel. But here's what I love about the Democrats. I'm sorry, I just got to say it. The Democrats are clearly trying to burn the country down. You might think it's an exaggeration, but come on. Tuesday, May 11th at 6 Eastern Daylight Time, The Guardian reported Michigan orders closure of pipeline in escalating dispute with Canada because the last thing we need right now is oil and gas. What? I can't believe I saw this story. I was like, what's the stupidest thing the Democrats could do in the middle of a oil and gas crisis, an energy crisis? And it's like, probably shut down more pipelines. Here we go. I'm not kidding. The governor says the line is a ticking time bomb. The company says Line 5 has never experienced a leak. The Whitmer in Michigan is like, nah, we don't want none of that gasoline right now. So are we going to start seeing gas shortages in the Midwest? I got no idea. I don't know if that line's actually completed or what the plan is, but I will say the craziest thing. We talked about this last night. I was doing general research, pulling up sources to talk about the gas shortage and, what's been going on. And there were a bunch of stories going back a week before the cyber attack saying gas shortages are coming. And for a few reasons. One was that they said truckers won't be driving. So if there's no truckers delivering the fuel and you ain't got the fuel, and then it's a systemic collapse, I suppose. But a lot of truckers were commenting on Timcast IRL last night saying there's no shortage of truckers. It's federal regulations. Now, here's where things get really interesting. I'm not asserting anything. I'm just pointing out something interesting. All right. You take it for what it is. All of these stories pop up. CNN, The Guardian, Fox News. A trucker shortage means we won't have gas and gas prices will skyrocket. OK, if that's true, truckers are saying it's not true in my super chat. If it's true that there's no truckers, right, then how do you get more gas and oil into areas if you don't have more drivers? Here's another solution. Have the existing drivers deliver more fuel. The problem? There's federal regulations on how many hours they're allowed to drive. You could lift those regulations with an emergency declaration, but that emergency declaration would say something like, we are going to be slammed by a gasoline shortage due to the inability to transport it. So we are going to be, temporarily suspending these regulations. Well, I guess rather coincidentally, it didn't matter because a cyber attack hit an oil pipe, this company, Colonial, and now they had no choice but to lift these regulations, allowing truck drivers to drive more hours, which is just strange because how is the gas pipeline shutdown changing the amount of truck drivers there are to deliver gas to these stations? I don't know. But it is true. It is fair to say. Well, I shouldn't say fair to say, but it is true. The gas pipeline is transporting that oil, gas, and fuels across the southeastern U.S. So, all right. So I guess that makes a lot of sense. Now, here's what I want to ask, right? Because a lot of people are saying that it's all panic buying. The reason there's a gas shortage in these places, it's all panic buying, 25%. So you're saying that people in North Carolina are more prone to panic buy than in neighboring states? It does seem kind of weird to me. It's entirely possible, but let's read the story. However, I'm going to do something I don't normally do. Before we get started, my friends, head over to safeandreadymeals.com. The link is in the description below. I do these promos for these emergency food supplies when I probably shouldn't do it during, when the crisis actually hits. But I suppose I, like many other people, it's out of sight, out of mind. When everything's fine, we don't really think about this stuff. This is Safe and Ready Meals are 4-week emergency food supplies, and you can even get 3-month emergency food supplies. I have a bunch of these because you need to be prepared for a disaster, inclement weather, tornadoes, flooding, whatever, or maybe there's no gas, trucks can't deliver food or supplies or whatever. I put it this way. You got a first aid kit, right? Do you know where it is? A lot of people do. A lot of people actually don't, but you still have one. You probably never use it. This is the stuff, this safe and ready meals, you can put in a closet. You can leave it there for like, if it's stored properly, they say up to 25-year shelf life. So I, again, have a bunch of these. Not enough for everybody for like an apocalypse or anything, but it's not about that. We had high winds, trees fell down, and we had to get them cleared. And so we're sitting here like, what do we do? Well, we got a bunch of food. It'll last us quite a bit if we were ever really stuck here for some reason. So I definitely think it's something you should consider. When you go to safeandreadymeals.com, you buy the stuff. It does support my work. This is a sponsored post. And I do them only when I think it really matters. Look, there's a lot of people who criticize me for this. That's fine. You're absolutely entitled to. If you don't want to buy the stuff, just don't do it. Okay. But I mean it when I say I have this. And it's really good. I liken it to like those bagged meals you get at the grocery store where it's like it comes with the flavor powder. You put it in the pot, you stir it, and boom, you got noodles and mac and cheese or whatever. I'm not gonna tell you what to do, how do you live your life. If you think what I'm saying makes sense, you think it's a good idea, it does support my work, so I appreciate if you check it out. But I'm genuinely, I'm sincere when I say I think you guys should consider having some of these things. Check the story out from NBC 12. They say, nearly a quarter of all gas stations in North Carolina are without gasoline Wednesday morning as drivers continue to line up at the pump to refill. That's according to Gas Buddy as of 7 a.m. Wednesday, a website and mobile app that helps people find the cheapest gas near them. North Carolina has the highest percentage of gasoline outages on the East Coast. Georgia and South Carolina follow at 15 and 13%. According to Gas Buddy, at 8 a.m. Wednesday, 71% of gas stations in the Charlotte area are out of fuel. Whoa! Wow, man. 71% in Charlotte. Tuesday night, nearly 60% of all Raleigh area gas stations were out of fuel. A full list of which gas stations are reporting shortages can be found by visiting Gas Buddy. Here's what I find interesting. Georgia, 15%. Alabama, 1.8. Tennessee, 2.8. South Carolina, 13.4. North Carolina, 24.8. Florida, 4.2. Virginia, 15%. Is there something about North Carolina that people panic more? It could be. No, and I mean this. It could be that somebody runs out the door, jumps in their car, and peels the gas. And people are like, whoa, what's going on? There's a gas shortage. So everybody sees everyone else panic, and then everyone else panics, and it's not happening in other areas. Or it could be that this particular state has a different delivery schedule and are being impacted by the pipeline shortage, the pipeline outage. It was interesting. I remember reading a story, and they said, because the cyber attack happened, I think, on Friday. And they were like, if this remains shut down for a few days, we'll start seeing shortages. Then we get the government saying there's no shortages. The New York Times says there's no lines. Well, clearly that's not true. That's a crazy lie. There are lines. But what are they saying? There's no shortage. Well, the government's probably saying we have all the gas. I mean, in reserve, not at your gas station. So when someone says, is there a gasoline shortage? They're not asking whether or not the U.S. government has a stockpile of gas. They're asking whether or someone does. They're asking whether or not my local gas station has gas. The answer is there is a massive shortage of gas in the South, on the Southeast coast. So why South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia? Why is North Carolina hit the hardest, followed by South Carolina and Virginia? Honestly, I don't know. It's hard to speculate. But a lot of people, for some reason, it's the tribal left being like, oh, shut up. Everything's fine. Forgive me if I don't trust you when you say these things. It's panic buying. Nothing's happening. Only in North Carolina, I guess. People in Maryland aren't panicking. How does that make sense? So where I live in, we have Maryland, Virginia, and West Virginia all around each other, right? It's like 5 minutes you can be between each state. About 10 or 15 minutes away from me, there's massive lines for gas. So the guest we had last night was saying that they're on their way up. They drove to the sun. They saw lines like crazy. Like I think he was mentioning like 10 gas stations. That's Virginia. It's very close to me. Okay. I was easily able to get gas around me with no issue. Maybe it's because I'm in a more rural area and about 15, 20 minutes away. Everybody rushed out to get gas. Or maybe it's, and that's probably the case. I mean, if people are lining up for gas and they don't need it, then, maybe that's the case. But it could just be that there's a different delivery schedule or these states. I mean, it's entirely possible. Again, I could be wrong about this, that some states are like, we'll do more frequent shipments at a lower amount than one big shipment at a larger amount. And that could result in a faster shortage. So it's entirely possible when you see that in certain areas, gas is fine and no one's worried about it. and then just across the state line, everything's different, that might be a policy issue. So look, I don't know. Maybe it is people just panicking and lining up. But I just think it's strange that I can cross the state border and all of a sudden there's like people freaking out about gas. And then I can cross back over to Maryland and it's like everything's fine. 3.5% of gas stations in Maryland, 15% in Virginia. Now, people might easily point out, oh, they're talking about, Arlington, closer to D.C. and Maryland. What about Baltimore, I guess? I don't know. What I can say is you drive 10 or 15 minutes across the state line of Virginia, there are lines and people are struggling to get gas and there's closures, 15%. You come back to Maryland, it's not the same thing. I'm wondering if this has to do with delivery schedules. It's entirely possible that the western part of Maryland gets some of their gas from a different pipeline. West Virginia seems to be unaffected and they're not included in the state of emergency. I don't know. I can tell you, Democrats don't seem to want to make things better. Oh, you know what? I'm sitting here, sipping my coffee, just laughing, and it's not the kind of laughing where I'm like having a good time and it's funny. It's just kind of like, it's more like a Joker. Like, here we go. This is what you get. The Guardian. The state of Michigan has told a Canadian energy company it must shut down a controversial oil and gas pipeline by Wednesday. What? This is not a joke. This is amazing. Oh, wow. I better buy like a bike charger so I can pedal a bike to power my electric car or something, because they say amid growing fears that a spill would be catastrophic to the region. The company's refusal to comply with the order and swift support from top Canadian officials highlights the politicized nature of pipelines, which campaigners have used as a target in the fight against climate change. You see, they wanted these things shut down a long time ago. It has nothing to do with a spill or whatever. Some people say that, the eco-terrorists will sabotage these pipelines. Probably. Why are they trying to shut down all these oil pipelines? And why did they do it in the middle of a gas shortage? I'll put it this way. If you live in Michigan, I don't know if they're actually, yeah, so it is operating. Look, they say for nearly 67 years, Enbridge has moved oil and natural gas from Western Canada through Michigan and the Great Lakes to refineries in the province of Ontario. But Michigan says that one section of the pipeline is too risky to continue operating. In November, the Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer announced a plan to revoke the easement granted to Enbridge, which permits Line 5 to cross under the Straits of Mackinac. Whitmer said 12 May as the deadline for the Canadian energy giant to shut down the pipeline. So I don't think this is delivering fuel into the U.S. It sounds like it's delivering it to refineries. But obviously we get fuel from, we import, we export. And there are probably a lot of people who live in this area who rely on fuel from both Canada and the U.S. So I don't know if this is going to result. Here, let me read a little bit more. These oil pipelines in the Straits of Mackinac are a ticking time bomb, and their continued presence violates the public trust and poses a grave threat to Michigan's environment and economy. The company says it never experienced a leak in the underwater section of Line 5 and is currently working to tunnel beneath the lake bed to further improve the safety of the pipeline. But in the last 2 years, the pipeline has been struck by boat anchors and cables. And in 2010, a separate Enbridge pipeline spilled 3.2 million liters of oil into Michigan's Kalamazoo River. Whitmer, who campaigned on shutting down the pipeline, has received support from Democratic attorneys general, as well as environmental campaigners and indigenous communities on both sides of the border. Should anything that's being transported in these 67-year-old pipelines get into the Great Lakes, it could have devastating effects and irreparable consequences, said the Anishinaabe Nation Grand Chief Counsel Glenn Hare, who represents 39 First Nations across Ontario. In February, a federal court ordered Michigan and Enbridge to enter mediation. Recently, Michigan has argued that the case should be heard by a state court, which could give it a more favorable judgment. So it doesn't seem like as critical as the Colonial Pipeline. It just seems kind of like a stupid story. I get it, man. There's a fear of environmental disasters. I don't know to tell you. There's the story. Does it make sense right now? Maybe they should put this on pause and not freak people out by saying we're going to shut down an oil pipeline. I don't know, but I'll tell you this, my friends. I hope you are prepared. If I was, look into that. I don't look. Nobody should be panic buying. I guess the issue is maybe in Virginia, people don't fill up their gas tanks. And so they all decide to do it at the same time. And people in Maryland do whatever. I got in my truck. I went down and there was nobody at the gas station. And I was like, just filling up like normal. The biggest problem I had was the pump kept clicking and it wouldn't pump. And I had to call the guy and he was like, I don't know, it's kind of broken or whatever. And then I was able to fill up and not have to worry about it. But I'll tell you what you might have to worry about. No, you are not imagining it, reports NPR. Prices for a lot of things did jump in April. You know, I saw this meme. It was from Patriots.win. It's the Donald Trump supporting website, and it was someone saying, I believe I'll wait until the price of ammunition goes down to purchase. And then there's two guys, and it says inflation and demand, and they start beating the crap out of the guy waiting. Yeah, goods are going up. The cost is going up. That means the value of your dollar is dropping dramatically. Now, they say consumer prices surged 4.2% in April from the depressed levels of a year earlier when the global economy was hit hard. That was the largest 12-month increase since a 4.9 increase in September of 2008. What happened around September of 2008? What could come next? Max Kaiser and Stacey Herbert, they're financial commentators and personalities, talk a lot about Bitcoin. And Max said that he believed inflation was around 10 to 15%, and that the government's not going to tell us this because it would force them to increase Social Security payments, which would cause a ripple effect. Gen Z's not going to give up 80% of their paychecks to pay for the boomers' Social Security. So they just keep saying inflation is low, even though it's not true, and we know it's much higher. Now you can see the price of goods starting to skyrocket. U.S. inflation is here. They say the accelerating inflation comes as companies have been forced to pay more to secure critical materials like lumber and steel amid continued disruption to the global supply chain. And the government also pumped trillions of dollars into the economy in a bid to blunt the impact from coronavirus, contributing to inflation. You think? U.S. consumer prices surge in April by the most since 2009. Are y'all paying attention? Because, I had someone comment, they were like, Tim just keeps selling fear to his audience. And it's like, I guess if you see it that way, I mean, you don't have to watch. I'm just talking about the things I'm seeing. I'm talking about the things that I think are important. And I think it's breaking news when there's gas shortages. It may be panic buying, but the pipeline is still shut down. Many people are pointing out, can't pipelines be manually operated? Can't they just go and manually open valves and keep things running? I don't know. I think it would be strange if they couldn't. Oh no, the computer shut down. Now we can't access anything? I guess it's kind of like, possible with Bitcoin if your phone breaks or whatever and you're like, where are my keys? What do I do? So always know what your Bitcoin keys are, but I digress. Yeah, there's a very real something very real is happening. The bill comes due. We spent all this money. We borrowed all this money. And here we go. And it really does feel like this is Democrat leadership. Obviously, many of you have seen the conflict with Israel and Gaza has been lighting up. And there were brutal protests in the streets in Manhattan. And I mean, people are on edge. Ben Shapiro pointed out that Joe Biden changed a bunch of policies that immediately started providing funding to certain groups and putting pressure on Israel. And then all of a sudden, we start seeing this explosion of rocket fire from Palestine, from Gaza, into Israel from Hamas. And it's Democrat leadership. They want to shut down an oil pipeline amid a massive oil pipeline shutdown and a gas shortage. They want to print more money. Joe Biden wants $300 unemployment benefits. So as we know, people aren't going to be working. Man, it really does feel like Democrats are just trying to burn the country down. And I wonder why. Is it any coincidence that many of these people aligned with the establishment are very deferential to China and have interests there and have companies there and will go wherever the money is? I wonder if that's it. So there was some report about a bunch of Republicans, never Trumpers and warmongers want to quit or leave the GOP or whatever. Yeah, the establishment is happy with the burning down of this country. I can only wonder about it. I think about Thucydides' trap, which is that whenever a rising economic power begins to supplant the dominant power, war breaks out. And maybe these people think one way to avoid the war is just to destroy the economy of the U.S. so it just flips really fast instead of having this stagnation where they fight. I don't know for sure, but I can tell you, it does feel like Democrats are trying to destroy everything. Republicans aren't doing anything better, mind you, but they're just sitting there with their sitting on their hands being like, I'm not going to do anything. And it's just, yeah, I have to wonder where this all leads to. But I do hope that you've taken care of yourself, your friends, and your family. I hope that you've gotten away from cities, and many of you haven't. And many people argue with me like, I can't just up and leave. Okay, well, look, man. In some of these cities, there's no gas. In some of these cities, there's the potential for food shortages because if trucks can't get in, if there's no gas, maybe it's a temporary thing. Maybe it's only a week. I don't know. But why would you look at a disaster and be like, this is fine. I'll be fine. Everything's fine. When you see these things, isn't this the point at which you say, maybe we should be prepared for the worst? A lot of people don't want to do it. And I guess that's urban liberal city folk. If you are someone who is paying attention to these stories, find a better life. Just maybe it's not the right place to be. But hey, don't look at me. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. You do what you got to do. And some people just prefer to be there, and so be it. But I don't think things are getting better. It does not seem that things are getting better. It seems that things are getting worse. Is that pessimistic? Maybe. Is it realistic? Maybe. Is it idealistic to say, just plug your ears, don't read the news, and everything will be okay? Maybe. Is it just the media is freaking us out and causing this? It's also possible too. So I can only report on what's being reported, For the time being, we're going to be launching a newsroom over at timcast.com, but I just want you guys to take care of yourself. And look, a lot of people don't like it when I promote that food stuff, the food buckets. Your worst case scenario, if you buy that stuff, is that you put it in the closet and you forget about it. And the worst case scenario is you eat it. It's food. So we have a bunch of these. I cracked one open and I was like, hey, who wants stroganoff? And we made a big pot of noodles. You're going to eat food. You have food. You get these. They last a long time. That's the difference. We go to the store. It's like Spam lasts for 5 years. Some cans, beans only last for 2 or 3 years. These things, 25. When we were hungry one day, we were like, let's eat some of this. See how it goes. Delicious. It's up to you, though. You do you. You don't like it? By all means, tell me I'm a moron, and I'll leave it there. Next segment is coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I will see you all then.